हरि बोल, बोल हरि बोल। कृष्णेरा संसारे ताखी, बोल हरि बोल। कृष्णेरा संसारे ताखी, बोल हरि बोल, बोल हरि बोल, बोल हरि बोल, बोल हरि बोल। असत्संग छाड़ी भाई, बोल हरि बोल, बोल हरि बोल, बोल हरि बोल। वैष्णव चाराने खोदी, बोल हरि बोल, 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 बोल हरि बोल। गौर नित्यानंद बोल, गौर गदाधर बोल, गौर नित्यानंद बोल, गौर गदाधर बोल। गौर अद्वैत बोल, गौर अद्वैत बोल, बोल हरि 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 बोल। ओम नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण परमेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे, निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश धारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। बोल हरि बोल, 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 बोल हरि बोल। Hare Krishna to all. We welcome you, Prabhuji, Prasanatma Balaram Prabhuji. Dandavat pranams.
Dandavat pranams. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna to all the devotees. Dandavat pranams. It was a wonderful kirtan. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, if you can make me the co-host, that will be good. Okay, I hope my audio and video is clear.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you. So, Hare Krishna. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam To Jaya Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatam Maham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So, welcoming all of you to the Monday session. So, I am already seeing some hands raised. So, thank you so much for the enthusiasm. So, today we'll be looking at the Bhagavatam verses from the second canto, 8th chapter. So, the verses that we'll see are from 19 to 22. Sorry, from 18 to 22. The 18, I think, was not covered in the last class. So, we'll be doing from 18 and then up to 22. So this particular chapter, the title is called Questions by King Parikshit, or Parikshit Maharaj's Questions. So I'll just try to share the particular verse. Okay, you can tell me if you are able to see it on the screen.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, no Prabhu. Still more down it should come. Yes.
No, I'll get it down, but at least it is visible. Yeah. Okay, so this is the verse 2:8-18. Nirnam sadharano dharmaha savisheshascha yadrishaha shreninam rajarshinam cha dharma krishreshu jivatam. So anybody wants to repeat, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes,
Dandavat.
yes, Mataji. Dandavat pranams to you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Nranam sadharano dharma savisheshascha yadrisha shreninam rajarsinam cha dharma krishresu jivatam. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. And the translation, who would like to try the translation?
May I read, Prabhuji? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, please go ahead, Mataji.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Please also explain what may generally be the common religious affiliations of human society, as well as their specific occupational duties in religion, the classification of the social orders, as well as the administrative royal orders and the religious principles for one who may be in distress. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So here actually, we are not going to look at the purport, but I'll try to cover it like we've been doing every time. So before we get started, Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschayata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So before we start, just seeking the blessings and the mercy of all the devotees who are here. Kindly shower your mercy on me so that I'll be able to speak and then do some justice to these wonderful verses today, which we are going to see today. So that the right words come at the right time in the right spirit. I'm just doing this as a service to my Guru Maharaj, to the Guru Parampara, and also for the pleasure of the Lordships. So on that note, we'll start. So the chapter, like I said, is questions by King Parikshit. So the questions that Parikshit Maharaj is asking, that itself is one particular chapter. Okay, and he's asking so many questions. You would have seen now, actually, day in and day out, it's only the questions. So they are very detailed questions if you look at it, And why is he asking so many questions? So the Acharyas say he's asking these questions so that he wants to hear. And now, why does he want to hear? Because of two reasons. So one is, who is the person who is speaking? It is Sukadev Goswami, who is a bona fide guru. So he is coming in the parampara. And then so here is a wonderful opportunity for him where he is sitting with him in front of him. And so he is asking questions. He wants to extract the maximum, so to speak, so that, he'll be able to assimilate all the jnana that is coming from Sukadev Goswami. So, and that's because he's a bona fide individual who's in the parampara. And also, he is having a lot of enthusiasm. He wants to hear more. He is having so much of enthusiasm and eagerness that he wants to hear more. And that is why he is asking questions. Sometimes, like children do that, right? When you are narrating a story, they don't want the story to end. So they will keep asking. Sometimes they'll ask the same question. Anyway, that's just a small example to relate the two. Here, of course, the questions were more detailed. And then, but then the eagerness and the enthusiasm is very similar to that of the child. So one has to show this enthusiasm and while asking questions, and that's the takeaway that we can see from a very overall perspective of this particular chapter. And now, by asking such questions, who is benefiting actually? So all the people who are present, of course, are benefiting. The person who's asking the question is benefiting because he gets to hear. And then the people who are with him are also benefiting. And then all the people who hear later on also, down the ages, after many, many hundreds of years also, whenever these conversations, these questions are being heard and then the answers are heard, then there is a benefit for the person who's hearing. That is us in this case. So here the purport, actually Srila Prabhupada, he is saying that hearing actually is hearing about the activities of the Lord is actually, what do you call? It is a means of associating with the Lord. So when we are hearing about the Lord, that means we are actually associating with the Lord. So how do we understand that? We've heard that the Lord is not different from his name, form, qualities, pastimes, and all of that. So it's the Lord is not different from all of that. The personality of Godhead, and then his name, then of course his form, that is the personality of Godhead, and then his qualities, gunas. There's so many guns which are there, and then the pastimes or the leelas that he performed. So all of this are non-different from the Lord. And here Prabhupada is putting it slightly differently, where he's saying that when we are hearing of the activities of the Lord, which can be the pastime of the Lord, is to associate with the Lord directly. I think all the listeners and of Srimad Bhagavatam will definitely agree how we don't even realize how the time flies when we are listening to the Bhagavat Katha. So there's so much of nectar in it that time flies. And then for that particular moment, we actually forget our material miseries or the things that are at hand after the 1 hour duration, after the Zoom call is over or whatever. So because then we go back to the material life. So like this, and this happens every time. It's not like it just happened once. Also, every time it happens, and it happens for everybody. So actually, why is this happening? Is because it is actually we are connecting to the Lord directly, and this connection to the Lord actually leads to purification. So now, what do we mean by purification? If anybody wants to try, what is purification? What does it mean? Purification of what in particular?
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, purification of the heart where anarthas are getting eliminated.
Yes, thank you, Mataji, Shilpa Mataji. So, Hare Krishna. So the anarthas of the heart are getting eliminated. So here we are talking about purification from material contamination. So to be a little more specific. So we are not talking about, are we talking about the bodily contamination, the material contamination? You go out in the streets or you go out in a place where there's a lot of dust and then our body becomes contaminated with full of dust. That's at one level. We are in the material world and then there is this contamination. But then the contamination that we are talking about is not that. It is not at the gross level. It is more at the subtle level. Subtle level contaminations has to be, it gets purified by listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam or listening to the activities of the Lord. Now, this purification is not about like sprinkling of the water over the head and all. Of course, that also helps. It is needed. It is one of the process. But then this is more internal in nature. And that internal purification is actually hearing and chanting. In fact, even while purifying our body, just as a small off note, I'm just mentioning, what do we say? We say, there is this mantra that we chant. So Appavitra Pedro va Sarvavastanato Piva. Yasmaret Pundarikaksham. So who is Pundarikaksha? He is the Lord. And then Yasmaret, actually I am thinking of this of the Lord in my mind. Thereby the purification, let it come to me, or it is going to happen. So that's exactly what it is in a very, I mean, I'm just roughly translating that. So it's saying that, so even at physical level, if there is a purification that has to happen, purification is starting from the mind actually. So the mind is purified, then the body gets purified because we will take care of them. So anyway, that's just a small side note. So the fact is that the Lord's name is what is actually purifying us, and then the purification at the subtle level, where what gets purified, the mind gets purified, and the intelligence gets purified, and then what else? Only these two get purified, or is there anything else that get purified?
Prabhuji, our thoughts,
False ego.
words, and deeds.
The false, yeah, I heard false ego. The false ego also gets purified. So now the mind getting purified means the mind will not dwell, the mind and the senses together will not dwell, or it will not get too attached to the material sense enjoyments that are there. So there is a purification that is happening. And thereby then the intelligence, so there are right thoughts that come, there is a light viveka or discrimination we develop. And then we develop a lot of determination to do certain things, to not do certain things, so on and so forth. So in this way, intelligence is getting purified of the material contamination that was there earlier. So before let's say, one started to hear about the Lord's name, or one started to associate with the Lord. And then when these two get purified, then we realize who we are. And that is the purification of the false ego. So the false ego goes. So what remains? False goes in the ego. So ego remains. So this is because me as an individual, because in Vaishnava, all Vaishnavas, they understand that they have to retain their individual identity. And so in that connection, we can say the ego remains, but then the false ego goes. So what is false ego? False ego means what? What does it mean? It means that we are identifying ourselves with the
Body.
Body.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, yeah, these are basics. I know all of us are aware, but then we will have to hear this again and again, read it again and again, hear it again and again, keep saying it again and again, because Prabhupada always did that, In the lecture, when there is so much of detail going on, suddenly he will take a pause, Prabhupada, and then he says, so you are not this body. And then he'll continue with the lecture. So sometimes people used to wonder why that is coming, and then they had asked, I think. And then Prabhupada said, so that's the essence, the crux of all the entire Vedic philosophy is that we have to understand that we are not this body. That's also, he keeps repeating it that many times. So Acharya has put it across so brilliantly. How every aspect of Srila Prabhupada, every word, every sentence he makes, there is so much in it for all of us. So much of mercy is flowing. It's just that we fail to realize it. But once we hear from the Acharyas, from the disciples of Prabhupada, then it becomes very clear. So now, we know that, the purification will have to happen in stages. And then we actually will realize whether the purification is happening or not. We can be our own judge, but we have to be honest, of course. But then otherwise, we can realize like how I still have certain anarthas, or I still have some craving, I'm still attached to certain things. If we take a pause and then think over the way I reacted in situations and all that, then we can realize that it's not something that is out of place. Anyway, so this is the essence of how Parikshit Maharaj is showing so much of enthusiasm, rightly so, because he's speaking, or he has Sukadeva Goswami who is giving his mercy, so he wants to make use of it, not only for his benefit, for the benefit of all of us. And then continuing the trend of questions, we are seeing how Parikshit Maharaj in the 18th verse is saying, he's inquiring actually, please explain what are the common religious affiliations, he's asking. What do we mean by affiliation? Affiliation means connection. So now what are the religious connections of human society? We have different types of human society which are there. So yeah, Vedic society is here, Indian society, and there's a whole lot, Western, Eastern, Oriental, whatever you want to look at it. So there are so many types of societies. So now what is the common religious connection that is there for all of them? what is their specific occupational duty with respect to religion? Is there a specific occupational duty? Because when we say occupational duty, what do we understand? We think it is earning my livelihood. No, what is my occupation? Why go work? I have to earn my livelihood. Why work? To support myself, to support my family. So all of that. So this way, if we look at it, then there are occupational duties. So as the head of the family, you have to go and earn, or whatever. I mean, however you want to look at it. Or as a person who's taking care of the family, these are my occupational duties, where I'll have to take care of the children, provide for the husband, and so on and so forth. I mean, I'm not trying to be set any preconceived notion, but I'm just taking this as an example. That's all. So there are duties, occupational duties that exist for each of us. Now, are there any specific occupational duties with respect to religion? Then are there any specific occupational duties with respect to the social order? And are there any specific religious principles for somebody who's in distress? So like this, Parikshit Maharaj is asking so many questions. And then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada goes on to directly to the essence of what has to be told. So he begins by saying that the common religion for all classes of humans, irrespective of what society they belong to, class and the mass, is devotional service. So direct to the point. So then straight away then in the purport, Prabhupada is explaining devotional service. But he is explaining it in a little different way. What does he say? He takes the example and then he says that devotional service is so universal that even animals can be engaged in devotional service by an expert. A pure devotee can actually engage even animals in the devotional service of the Lord. So it is so universal. It is the universality of devotional service. It is like universality of filling the belly, or anything like that, or defending oneself. So like that, it is so universal. And what is the example that is being given for this? Can anybody think of an example of an animal being involved or being engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, and that too in a very pure devotional service? That's the point I'm giving. Sorry?
Using the cow's milk for Abhishekam of the Lord, Prabhuji.
Okay, those are all nice examples.
Lord Chaitanya Prabhuji, when he went to the jungles and he was chanting.
Okay, so he involved that. Yes, that is a good example too.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, even the parrot who was listening to the
Yes.
Bhagavatam when narrated.
Okay, fine. So there are so many such examples, but the example of active devotional service, Prabhupada actually is giving this example of Hanumanji. So Hanuman, we know, is a monkey, and then all the other involved entities along with Hanuman. That is the kingdom of or under the king of Angada. So all of them were involved in the devotional service of the Lord. So this is the example that Prabhupada gives, and then likewise we can understand that how the army of monkeys as well as Hanumanji, everybody was actually included in the devotional service. So they were made part of it. And then not only animals, even tribals, aborigines, or what do you call them? Cannibals, So these kind of people also can be engaged in devotional service. This is another thing that Prabhupada says. They may not take to the other paths. Actually, if you see, like aborigines or even animals, you cannot sit and then preach to them, tell them about Jnana Yoga or Dhyana Yoga. You can make them sit in one place and then do meditation, because their mind will be elsewhere and they won't know what it is, or they just don't want to do it. So like this, or even Karma Yoga, you talk to them about duty and all that, because they are in such a guna that they'll say, what duty? I don't care, I don't want, like this, even with modern youth, anything. So in one way, the best way to engage somebody who's in that type of a platform would be to just engage them in some seva, some service, something. They may not even, it's not necessary that they need to know that it's a seva that they are doing for the Lord. Then just ask them to do some activity. Thereby then, some mercy will flow to them. So this is how exalted devotional service is. And it has to be done under the guidance of a genuine devotee of the Lord, or it has to be done under the guidance of a guru. This is what Prabhupada is concluding. Even though it's a question that is being asked, Prabhupada is actually answering the question in the purports, if you see. So thereby, there are purports. For some it is not there, but then, Prabhupada is actually elaborately covered. And then if you go on to the next chapter, then again, the whole, you will have a rerun of it on how Sukadeva Goswami is explaining it. So that's a kind of a revision or a more detailed answer we can say. So another example for these aborigines who are like into this, who are engaged in devotional service. Anybody wants to give an example? Bible. So Prabhupada wants to give the example of a hunter.
Hunter Megari.
Yeah, Brigari. So like he didn't even know. He could not even say Rama. He was so fallen. Like his tongue was not rolling enough to utter the word Rama, and then he had to make do with Mara, and then that Mara became Rama. So we know how he was kind of tricked into doing a devotional. To say the name of the Lord, not tricked in a very good way, so that it benefited him. So like this devotional service, Prabhupada takes the plunge and then he's explaining that everything that is universal about devotional service is being told. And then devotional service to the Lord can be equally shared by all living entities. So that's one. So much of seva is there. So many people can be involved. But then sometimes what happens in our enthusiasm to do seva, we may not involve the people who are nearby, even though it is so easy. We might ignore, or we might become so overcome with me, let me do, I have to do, and so on and so forth, that sometimes we lose this opportunity to actually engage others in devotional service. And this is what, as progressing devotees, we are supposed to do. We will have to engage as many people in the devotional service by realizing that it can be, anybody can do it. So always, if you see senior Vaishnavas, if you see the Acharyas, they are always looking at how I can engage somebody in the devotional service, especially the Guru. So the Guru is always thinking of it, like how can I engage somebody in the devotional service of the Lord. So any small thing is given as a seva, and thereby it benefits that particular individual. So we have seen how devotional service is superior to all other paths, karma, jnana, and ana, because it is not so universal as devotional service. We saw that. And then there are actually further religious connections in terms of different countries, cultural circumstances, and all that. So whatever religion that we see, a religion evolved in the middle of, in whatever the other region other than Bharatvarsh. So there also there are certain way in which certain things are done. We might find it strange. So at the outlook, when you look at these various activities, which the common man thinks as religion, then we will realize that there is nothing common in the practices that are there. There's no commonality. But however, in this particular purport, Prabhupada goes beyond that. And then this is actually showing the universal acceptance of Sanatana Dharma that is coming out so strongly in this purport, where Prabhupada is actually going beyond, and then he's saying that we should not look at the differences that exist because of difference in the countries, difference in the circumstances, and so on and so forth. Because then if we try to look at some commonality, we may not find it. There can't be a common religion of humans. But what is common is the basic principles of devotional service, or the devotional service itself, or the principles of devotional service. Now we might ask, what are the basic principles of devotional service? So anybody wants to answer that? What are the basic principles of devotional service?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Shravanam, Kirtanam.
Yeah, they are the processes of devotional service, but basic principles. What is it that I need to possess to do devotional service?
We are always the servant of the servant of the servant. Prabhu, we are always the servant of the servant.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna, unmotivated, unmotivational, and uninterrupted.
Yeah, nice. So all theory, a mix of
Devotion, Prabhu.
Ahituki and Apratihata. Very nice. Okay, so thank you for that. But what I also want to say is that I'm talking about the basic quality that one needs to possess to perform devotional service, which came out actually. You all did that.
Submissive hearing.
Being submissive and humble.
Being submissive and humble.
Realizing that
surrendering
we are the servant
to
of the God.
Surrendering to authority. So these are all common traits that we will have to look at. And these are the traits. Even if you take another religion, there is surrender to their Lord. There is love for their Godhead, so on and so forth. Now, the personality of Godhead, whom they think is God, might be different. But then, the inherent quality that is expected out of a devotee is very similar. And that is what Prabhupada is trying to bring out here. And then he is saying that the basic principles of devotional service, which is like surrender, like you said, surrendering to authority. I just named a few of them, like having no expectations of results in return, giving pleasure to the Lord. And then one's own pleasure is not a criteria. That means we willingly take some difficulties, which is the sadhana that we do. And then being disciplined, like getting up at a certain time, like even in another religion, 5 times you have to do in a day. Every day you have to read this. All of that people religiously follow. So this aspect of the quality of following, that is the basic principles of devotional service, is the commonality which is there in all the religion. So I hope that is a point that all of us have understood now. So the love that is expressed to the Godhead or to whoever they are saying is the God is the same. So those who are not godly or who are not accepting the universality of Godhead also surrender to some leaders, such leaders who are taking forward a certain movement which is spiritual and so on. Even there also they have to surrender. So this aspect of surrender is always there. So the whole world works on this principle of Sambandha, Vidya and Prayojana, because there is some Sambandha that is established to the Lord, or if not, then to that leader who's there. And then with that Sambandha, they identify themselves with that. So they want to be part of that group. So there is a Sambandha. So they say, oh, he's a great man. They know a little bit about him, or they are impressed by the way he talks. So somewhere, some Sambandha is there. By being impressed, by being awed by the things that person has done, building a beautiful whatever. I mean, I don't want to go into the details, but then there is Sambandha that is established. After the Sambandha is established, what the person does, there is Abhidaya. So you like to do something. So something like going and opening the car door and then waiting for him to come out or anything. Some active service is being done. And by that, then that person whom the individual wants to please sees, and then he smiles, and then he feels happy. So there is Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana in everything that we do. So all that Sanatana Dharma is saying is, shift this Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana to the Lord. So when it is done to the Lord, then the Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana will no longer be material. There's purification that happens, because the Prayojana that we'll expect by connecting to a materialistic Sambandha, Abhidaya, Prayojana will be immaterial in nature. So for some gains, for a good salary, I mean, we might do Sambandha, Abhidaya, Prayojana even with the boss where we are working. So, but then that's material in nature. The results are also materialistic. But when we do Sambandha with the Lord, then the purification happens. Thereby, the material contamination is gone. So our Abhidaya is also pure, and then our Prayojana is also pure, or it is at the soul level. So there is this small changeover that happens. It's not small; it's a very significant changeover that happens. Thereby, though the activity might look the same, but then it is taking a completely different hue. Okay, and so we'll have to direct it to the Lord. And that is why they are saying that the aspect of devotional service is the same, but then it has to be identified correctly. So even occupational duty also. Occupational duty, like I spoke earlier about roti, kapada, makan, so eating, and then some shelter I need, and the nice clothes to wear and all. This is what, how I would like to project myself as, or how I'd like to be seen. So they also depend on the principles of devotional service, about surrender and all that. We just discussed that, right? So even occupational duty. So in devotional service, I mean, in conclusion, we can say devotional service is the only religion, and it is universal, even though present in different forms. So as far as human beings are concerned, and then all, or rather living entities are concerned, it is only the seva or the service, the seva bhav. So we need to develop that. And we need to develop it towards the right person. In fact, Prabhupada used to say to a communist when he was speaking, a scientist or some big individual like that, who was in the communist side. So he was saying, what is the difference between you and us, you people and us, that is all the communists and then all the Hare Krishna people? There is no difference. You accept a supreme authority, we also accept. You surrender to that authority, we also surrender. And then you work for that particular authority, following his instructions, we also do the same thing. It is just that we also have a leader, you also have a leader, but my leader is better than your leader. So, of course, Prabhupada was trying to say that you're referring to Krishna, and he said, my leader is the best. So whatever I do becomes the best. Whereas for you, you have surrendered to a lower person, so all your activities are lower. Like this, Prabhupada gave so much wonderful practical examples to bring out the aspect of universality, which is about devotional service, which is actually, or which should be, the religion of everyone. And we need to develop an eye to see this, and then we will definitely be able to develop love of Godhead, surrender, so on and so forth. And we'll also not be able to see others in a different light. So hence Prabhupada actually said, Krishna consciousness is not a sectarian movement. So many times he has said that. He said it is universal, it is applicable to all. And then he used to ask, did I ask any of you to convert yourself to Hinduism? Because somebody was saying, you are actually preaching, you're teaching Hinduism. He said, no, this is not Hinduism. You have not understood it. This is beyond that. It is about Sanatan Dharma. And that is why the distinction being made about Sanatan Dharma. And then he says that there is no conversion. I have not asked any of them to convert to Hinduism. I have not asked them to leave their Christianity. All I have said is you become a true Christian if you follow Krishna consciousness. So because you will understand your position, you will follow what is to be followed. And when you follow the instructions at once, after a certain level, it is all the same. It is just love of Godhead, and then there is Abhidaya and Prayojana that is happening. So if you break it down to Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana, it can come under different names of Sanatan Dharma or Christianity, so on. Of course, it has got contaminated. So the way it is now may not look like a suitable example. But if you remove the contaminations, then it would be the same at that level when everything is in its pure stage. So this is what Prabhupada is bringing out. And if you look at verse 19, which is talking about, I'll try to share. Hare Krishna, just a minute. Yes, verse 19, who would like to read? I see hands up. Shanti Mataji.
Myself, Shanti Ramachandran Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Tatvanam Parisankhya. Prabhu, acha, you are reading Prabhu, then I will read.
No, you go ahead and read. Yeah. Because we cover more.
Tatvanam Parisankyanam Lakshanam Hedu Lakshanam Purusharadhana Vidhir Yogasya Jatmighasya Cha.
Thank you, Machari. Thank you for that. So who would like to read the meaning?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah, go ahead.
You mean meaning Prabhu or translation?
Sorry, the translation. Sorry.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Kindly explain all about the elementary principles of creation, the number of such elementary principles, their causes and their development, and also the process of devotional service and the method of mystic powers. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we'll also see the next shloka, which is verse 20.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, shall
I? Yes, Mataji, 1 minute. I'll try to position it correctly. Yes, go ahead.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji. Verse number 20. Yogeshwaraishwarya gathir linga bhangastu yoginam vedo bhaveta dharmanam itihasa puranayo. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. And the meaning?
Should I continue the translation?
No, somebody else can do the translation, please.
Sharmila Mataji can please read.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. What are the opulences of the great mystics, and what is their ultimate realization? How does the perfect mystic become detached from the subtle astral body? What is the basic knowledge of the Vedic literatures, including the branches of history and the supplementary Puranas? Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So these two we will see, and then we'll do the other two. Okay, so what is Prabhupada talking about? What is Parikshit Maharaj speaking about here? More questions again. So he's asking, please explain about the elementary principles of creation. So we know what are the elementary principles of creation because we already read the Bhagavatam. But then he's asking here. And then how many are there, then their cost and development, and then what is the process of devotional service and the method of mystic powers. So he wants to know so many things. It is also varied. Like suddenly we'll ask questions which are not related also, or we think at the outset is not related, right? Like kid, especially child. So like this, Parikshit Maharaj is asking. And then in the next verse, he's saying, what about, when we're talking about mystic powers, then this word that we'll have to remember is Yogeshwara. So what about the Yogeshwaras who are the mystics? So Prabhupada, in that particular purport of the 20th verse, he's saying, because in the 19th, there is no purport. So we can move on to the 20th. There he's saying that there are 8 types of opulences or siddhis that a person can get. And a person who has got any of these or all of this, which we call as Ashtasiddhis, such a person is an Yogeshwara. So, or an yogi, Yogeshwara for short. So they are all very powerful people who have mystic powers. So what about them? How, what is the, where do they stand with respect to this ladder of approaching Krishna or going near to Krishna? So where do they stand? So there, Prabhupada is saying that there are so many Yogeshwars with so many proficiencies. That means so much of expertise in certain things. So what are these Ashtasiddhis? You all might know. What are they? There are these 8 types. Anima, Garima, Lagima, Prapti. There are 8 of them. So something is becoming very small or becoming very big, becoming very light, becoming very heavy. Light as in you can walk on water. Heavy as in Hanuman's tail was, him was not able to move it also. So like this, there are siddhis, Ashtasiddhis. Each one is one siddhi. And then become so small that you can go through the keyhole of a door and then come out or whatever. And then become so big. Or otherwise you appear and disappear. Like you move from one place to another. So, or prapti, whatever you want, you get. Like you want a mango, the mango comes in your hand. So like that. There are many siddhis that are there. So these are very attractive things. The moment we hear about all this, our antennas are up, our eyes widen. Oh, wow, that's so wonderful. So like that. So these people, the who possess them, naturally we have some attraction towards them. But then Prabhupada is saying that these are not what the devotees want. They don't practice these Ashtasiddhis. They are not interested in any of these things, these so-called wonderful things, which gives praise, which gives acknowledgement, means they get recognized and so on and so forth. They are given so much of importance and all that. So, but then they don't want all this. They are not attracted to it. Why they are not attracted to it? Because they want to serve only the Lord. For them, the service is so attractive that everything else becomes very pale. Position, wealth, riches. None of the things, the effects of the Ashtasiddhi is attractive to them, or the Ashtasiddhi itself is not at all attractive for them. And their sambandha is actually with the Lord. See, if you have the right sambandha, then the avideya is also proper, where they only want to do service or they just want to serve the Lord. And so the prayojana or the result that they get is different. In fact, it is the highest. And then it can, in fact, it is so high. Prabhupada makes a wonderful remark here where he says the prayojana of devotional service is so wonderful that it surpasses the Ashtasiddhis or the various mystic powers that a person might have. And then it overcomes these, and then they are, in one sense, the devotees become more powerful than the mystics or the people who are having these siddhi. So how do we understand that? For that, Prabhupada gives a wonderful example of how a child is able to, is protected by a parent. Child doesn't know anything. The child means like very innocent and very vulnerable, let's say, to the outside world. So outside world is the comparison to the siddhis or the siddhas, the yogeshwaras, let us say. So now they can be influenced or they can be affected by them. They can come under a curse, anything like that. So, but then the parents are protecting the child. So as long as the parents' protection is there, nothing happens to the child. The child doesn't even realize that there is some danger was there, and then it was taken care by my parent or whatever. So like that, the devotee is not even paying attention or heed to it. Then the Lord protects that person. So it is so thereby their position becomes stronger, or it becomes even higher than a person with Ashtasiddhi. So there are wonderful examples for this. So anybody wants to give an example of how a devotee becomes more powerful than a mystic?
Amrish Maharaj Prabhuji.
Bingo. So thank you, Mataji. Yeah, we'll take the example of Ambarish Maharaj. So this, which we all can relate to. Durvas Muni. So Muni with all siddhis, so much of power and all that. And so what happened finally, we know. I mean, I'll not narrate the story. We all know that. But then Ambarish Maharaj didn't want to defeat Durvas Muni. He just took shelter of the Lord. That's all. Then the Lord protected. What came searching for Durvas Muni, when Durvas Muni was about to curse, and then Ambarish Maharaj, what actually comes in between to rescue Ambarish? Yeah, the Sudarshan Chakra comes. Then we know how he is being chased, and then he goes everywhere. Then finally he has to come to Ambarish Maharaj only because everybody turns him down. Then he begs for forgiveness, and then the chakra goes back. So it's wonderful pastime. We can understand how the mystics or the people, Yogeshwaras, are no match for a pure devotee. And the pure devotee is not so inclined to this kind of mystic powers or any of those things. Then another example, who's the topmost mystic? It's a question I'm asking. Who's the topmost mystic? Krishna. Yeah, I heard that. So thank you. So Krishna is also an Yogeshwar. So how do we, where is the confirmation for that? Anybody can quote Bhagavad Gita shloka which talks about Krishna being an Yogeshwar?
Yatra Yogeshwara
Krishna
Yatra
Partho
Partho
Dhanurdaraha
Vijayo Bhuvani.
So that is the last shloka of the Bhagavad Gita, right? So where Sanjay is saying that. So he's saying he is the Yogeshwar. And what is the mystic thing that he was saying? Actually, Draupadi's example is given by Srila Prabhupada, where he says, like, in a very mystic way, Krishna actually saves Draupadi. We know that in that Vastra Abharan, whatever, that particular incident, where Draupadi is protected when she completely is depending on the Lord, and then the protection comes. And then this mysticism of Krishna is not alien to us. So we know how the entire Mahabharata war happened because, and the Pandavas won because of the mysticism of Krishna, where nothing happened to the chariot that Arjuna was riding, even though it was being hit by so many weapons and all of that, nothing happened. And then how Jayadratha was like made to come out of the pit because of the sunset that happened before the time. Like this, there are so many. So we can see the mysticism of Krishna in those instances. And then the conclusion that Prabhupada makes is that this is something beyond. A devotee is much beyond that. And then he also goes on to say that the purpose of Vedic knowledge, what is it? That is what is being asked. Vedo Upavedo. So Vedas as well as the Upavedas. What is the purpose of that? So there Prabhupada says that the purpose of the Vedas is, we know, there's a shloka in Bhagavad Gita. It says, to See, everybody is now, we are able to relate these things, so wonderful. So here in 15.15, Krishna is saying the purpose of Vedas is to know me, to reach me. And that's it. To know me, to reach me means if you know Krishna, then naturally, then we will serve. If you know somebody is the master and I'm the servant, so the natural progression is to serve. So know me and to do things in that knowledge, which is Abhidaya and Prayojana, is the purpose of the Vedas. So in this way, it's concluding. And then we saw how in the mind, intelligence, and ego level, both subtle and then in the gross, there is this jnana which comes, and then there is a change, the cleansing that happens, and thereby our devotional service becomes pure. Initially, it may not be pure. We might have some requirements, some expectations, return expectations. But then as we keep doing, the purification process is started. So it becomes purer and purer and purer. Thereby, we start moving towards that particular situation where we don't have any expectation. The ahai tuki and apratihata, all that we said. So we'll actually begin to experience those. So in the next verse, which is verse 21, what is Krishna trying to say? So we'll just, what is Parikshit Maharaj asking? I'll try to share. Just a minute. So verse 21 and 22 we can do together. We have 15 minutes, so we should be able to comfortably finish. So, yeah, who would like to read 21, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mata, please.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Samplava sarva bhutanam vikrama pratisankramaha ishta purtasya kamyanam trivargasya chayo vidhi. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. And the translation, who else would like to read?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can I?
Please go ahead.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Explain unto me how the living beings are generated, how they are maintained, and how they are annihilated. Tell me also of the advantages and disadvantages of discharging devotional service unto the Lord. What are the Vedic rituals and injunctions of the supplementary Vedic rites? And what are the procedures of religion, economic development, and sense satisfaction? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. That was nice. So that was one thing that we are seeing. Okay, I'll just stop here. We can talk about this. So Krishna is again, Maharaj, Ambarish, Parikshit Maharaj is again asking more questions. So here Prabhupada in this particular thing is saying that one firmly situated in devotional service can very easily execute the conditions of or the functions of a conditioned life. So what Prabhupada is claiming now is slightly different. So if one is situated in devotional service, that is enough to take care of everything. One need not have to separately endeavor for conditioned life, what I need to do, what I should do. No, it will all happen automatically. It's all contained in the devotional service to the Lord, to Krishna. So in that, all the other things are taken care. So, and then Prabhupada is actually bringing out the aspect of dependency on the Lord. Okay. How one needs to become dependent on the Lord for the life that we are leading in the material world, for the duties that we have, for the occupational duties that we have, for the social duties that we have, for any of them, how one has to depend on the Lord. So this is like the example that Prabhupada gives is about a boat on in an ocean. The ocean is so huge. So the boatman or the person who's inside the boat trying to navigate knows that he or she is at the mercy of the boat, of the ocean, or at the mercy of nature, we can say. It means ocean, the water, as well as the wind, both in combination. So it can be tossed around, it can be rough and all of that. So you are completely at the mercy. And based on what is going to come their way, they are prepared to take it and then do what is needed to the best of their ability. Thereby, they are able to cross this ocean in that way, and sometimes smooth, sometimes harsh. So, but then they always realize that I was at the mercy of something beyond me. No sailor will ever say that I did it and then it's my endeavor that I was able to weather the storm and come out of it. No, it's not like that. They always know that they were lucky. I did my best, but then I was lucky, or there was, I mean, if they are a believer of Lord, then they will immediately give the credit to the Lord. If they are not, then they'll give credit to Lord or whatever. I mean, in any way. But then they are trying to give credit, not take the credit for themselves, but they are giving the credit to somebody else beyond them. That's the aspect. And that is why this example of boat becomes very relevant. And Prabhupada says that when we are living this material world also, unlike the normal common thinking that I will take care of my life, we will have to understand that there is nothing in our control in our lives, and then it is. I mean, we'll have to surrender to the Lord. We'll have to give it to the Lord, and then wait for whatever comes, and then take that as His mercy, and then move on. So whether it is a high wave or a low wave, good weather, bad weather, rain, tsunami, thunder shower, whatever that comes, we'll have to take it. But then we'll always have to realize that we are dependent on the Lord. And for a devotee, it is quite natural to be dependent on the Lord. So it is quite natural then that he or she will endeavor in that right way. I mean, he will not do over endeavor, or he will not take credit for the success, or he will not blame the Lord for the failure. So these are all the boundaries within which the devotee will perform or act his daily duties, and thereby by carrying out in this way, then Prabhupada is concluding that is the right way to go about your material duties, your conditioned life activities. This is the way. So by surrendering to the Lord and then wait for whatever comes and then move on. So this is the best way. So this is what he's saying as an answer to that question, which we just read now. Okay, I mean, we just read that, so that's okay. So here, there are two references that are being taken. Prabhupada says that the Lord actually protects the pure devotee. So Lord's protection is there with everyone. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. So Lord says that I'm equal to everyone. But then I protect somebody who's a devotee of mine. No, I have this special thing to them. I take care of them. And that's what Krishna says in the 9th chapter also. And then that particular reference, and then whoever is taking the ashraya of the Lord, that is Daivi Prakriti ashraya, then I am very partial to them. Like I take care of them. So this is what Krishna says. I just try to read that particular verse. Mahatmanastu mam partha Daivim Prakritim ashritaha Vajanti ananya manaso nyatva buddhi bhuthadim avyayam. So what does that mean? Says that, O son of Pritha, that is Partha, Arjuna, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the supreme personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So the person who is under the divine protection, I mean, they get the divine protection because they are actually in devotional service and they know me as the supreme. So thereby they become eligible or entitled for this divine protection, which is Devi Prakritim Ashritaha. They get that ashraya. And then in the same way in that other shloka also, where Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshyo astina priyaha ye bhajante tu mam bhaktya mayi te teshu chapi aham. So where Krishna is saying, I envy no one, I am not partial to anyone, and I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend. He is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So Krishna very openly is saying that I am partial to my devotee, even though I am equal to everyone. So this is the reciprocation that is there. It is like the teacher saying, if you write all these things, then I'll give you 10 marks, otherwise you'll get less. So the person who's got 10 marks is, one should not conclude that 10 out of 10 he or she got because the teacher is partial to that person he gave me, whereas I did it and then he didn't get it. No, there's something that was missing, which was not fully qualified as a correct answer. So I get less mark than compared to the other person who was able to write all the points that they were looking for. So in this way, based on how I am able to interact with the Lord, thereby the Lord is able to reciprocate, or the Lord reciprocates. So these are things that we know, but then these are the answers that will come out for the questions that Parikshit Maharaj is asking. And then Prabhupada also is taking the references of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and then he says how one should be a pure devotee of the Lord. That's the next question. No? So there he's saying that one should not eat too much. One should not too much means much more than what is needed for the day-to-day activities. So somebody who is busy, who's physically active, will need to eat more, whereas the person who's not so busy or not so active will eat less. Otherwise, then there'll be weight gain and all that. And then otherwise, of course, we should not accumulate too much of wealth. So that's another aspect that is there in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So which is, accumulation of wealth is not allowed because you just earn how much you want for and then move on. So that's the disposition of a practicing pure devotee of the Lord. And then it also says that one has to be honest in all the dealings, whatever dealing, material dealing, conditional life, whatever dealings that we are doing with others. We cannot take the stance that I am a devotee, they are not, so I can do whatever I want with them. That is a very small understanding, improper understanding. So in fact, it is the other way around. I am a practicing devotee, whereas others are not so. I have to set an example so that they become devotees or they are inspired by us. So at least for that, let me act a bit in terms of being honest, moralistic in the dealings. So that will please Krishna, because that by itself is an austerity. Krishna says, no, among morality, I am morality among people who want to achieve something. So that's in the 11th chapter, or the 10th or the 11th chapter it comes. I think 10th chapter. Anyway, so like this, we can understand how being honest in our dealings is very important, and then being satisfied with whatever comes our way without much endeavor. On its own, it is coming. So we just accept it as prasad, as a mercy of the Lord, and then have it. So this way, what happens by doing all this is we earn the favor of the Lord. The Lord becomes a little favorable to such an individual because he recognizes the fact that we are taking some austerity, which is beyond my nature. My nature is that I need the best of everything, blah, 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 all of that comparison, try to undo the other person. So this is a materialistic life. And we have lived that for so many years. And then suddenly, because of the mercy of Guru, our mercy of association of other devotees, we begin to have such thoughts. And then we begin to make some steps towards it. The Lord reciprocates. And that reciprocation is what strengthens our resolution to do better, and then thereby the purification process is started, and then we start moving. So when we start moving, what happens? We are only glorifying the Lord. Satatam kirtayanto mam. So there is always satatam kirtan, means glorifying the Lord happens. And this is how then we go about discharging the devotional service with a lot of enthusiasm that is needed for doing it. Even though we are tired, we'll have to bring ourselves out of that lethargy, fight this lethargy, they say, with the knowledge, and then come out. And then, even though we don't feel, this is another thing that we trap that we get into. So I'm not feeling enthusiastic. So when I feel enthusiastic, I'll do, or I'm not in the mood. It's improper to do service in the improper mood. No, the proper mood is to understand that I don't have the mood. I'm lazy, I'm lethargic. But in spite of that, I'm supposed to do these things. So let me do it. Like getting up early in the morning for the chanting. So we know, and what do the seniors say? They say, get up. It's okay, even if you're sleepy, but get up. So beyond ourselves, nobody is in the mood in the day one itself. Oh, let me get up and then let me chant. That comes after many, many days of chanting, or many, many years. So springing out of the bed because I have to chant now. I don't know, maybe some of you, all of you have done, but then for me, I'm talking about myself. So we'll have to pull ourselves out of the bed. And then at 3:30 or 4, or sometimes it is late, even at 5. But still trying to bring that enthusiasm, and then chant, and then do the seva. So this is in our, it is with us. It is not with the Lord. The Lord is not going to give us the enthusiasm. We will have to bring it on. But when it is brought on, then he recognizes it, and then he tries to reciprocate or give us a little more there. And that way it moves on. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's preaching is also discussed here, where he says that Yare Dako Tare Kaho Krishna Upadesh. So this is the best devotional service that you can do to the Lord, is to please the Lord. And pleasing the Lord can happen by getting more people into Krishna consciousness. So that the Lord becomes very happy. So preaching is a wonderful function. So preaching has to be done enthusiastically and leave the results to Krishna. There again, there's a pitfall. We might say, okay, I made so many devotees, I conduct so many programs. I got so many people, the sadhana charts, the levels, this is so many are initiated, got initiated because of me, blah, blah, blah. So no, not into that. Leave the result to the Lord. It is between the Krishna and that individual whom you have brought. You are like a postman. You just brought that person and make that person stand in front of Krishna and then say, Krishna, now it is up to you. So my job is to bring and then leave here. That's all. Then you will have to take care. So if at all there is any small credit, Prabhupada says, that credit that can come to me is that I brought you all to Krishna. That's all. That also is not advised to have such a credit, to take such a credit. But then if at all there is any, so it's like the postman, he'll say, if at all any credit to me, I just delivered the good news to you. That's all. So like this, so many aspects Prabhupada is talking. And then he's saying the aim of all the Upavedas and everything is that only Puranas is to understand these aspects. And Parikshit Maharaj is making these inquiries so that it will benefit all the others, like I covered before. So I think there's another shloka to go, which is a short one. I'll just try to share that and we will try to wrap it up. So whoever wants to read this particular shloka, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, verse 22, Mataji, for you.
Yes, yes, Prabhuji. Yovanushayinam sargaha pashandasya cha sambhavaha atmano bandha mokshaucha vyavasthanam swarupataha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. And the translation? Anyone else?
Shall I read?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Please also explain how, merged in the body of the Lord, living beings are created and how the infidels appear in the world. Also, please explain how the unconditioned living entities exist. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So here this question is about how we all know that we get merged in the body of the Lord, and then the living beings, how they are created, and then how the infidels appear in the world. How did we come into this world? And then when the world was created, where did we come from? So please explain all these things. Is what Parikshit Maharaj is saying. And for that, Prabhupada actually is mentioning, he straight away goes into types of living entities for us to understand this in detail. So what he is saying is, there are two types of living entities. So we are talking about living entities here. Who are the living entities who manifest, who come out, and then when they come out, why they come out, what is the nature. So he wants those details. So here the discussion is starting with the different types of living entities. So living entities means jivatmas or jivatattvas. So there are two types, Prabhupada says. So this is just information, so we will know how it is. One is ever liberated into living entities. That means they are always liberated. There was never a time when they are fallen. So nitya muktas. And then there are people who are ever conditioned, always bound, conditioned to material world. So nitya baddhas. So there are two types of them. So the nitya siddhas, or the ever liberated, they are not going to appear in this world, irrespective of which yuga or which cycle of Brahma or which day of Brahma. It doesn't matter. So they will not come. So we are not going to talk about the ever liberated ones. So the ever conditioned ones is where we have to focus, which is us. Now, in the ever conditioned ones, there are two types of people, Prabhupada is saying. So one is the faithful, and then the other one is the infidels or the faithless ones. So now, the faithful ones, infidels, of course, they will get their birth again. But then the faithfuls, again, there are two types of people. So now the two types of people who are faithful are, they are devotees of the Lord, because they have faith and they are devotees, they are doing devotional service. Or they will be the ones who are faithful, but then they are mental speculators. There is no surrender. They want to speculate. And they are like empiric, mental speculators. So these are category. So that category again is an outlier. So like how infidels are outliers, then in this category, then mental speculators are outliers, which doesn't come under this side. And then among devotees, there are two categories, which is fully purified and then Mishra Bhakti, who are not fully purified. So the levels are increasing, are changing. But then the fully purified ones are as good as the ever liberated ones, because they'll get liberated because they are purified. So they're on this side. So being a faithful devotee who's fully purified is the way to go. But then if you look at the other aspects, which is being an infidel or being a mental speculator or doing Mishra Bhakti, they will have to take birth again and again, Prabhupada says. And then this is for their own purification. The purification for an infidel is so much difficult, this example Prabhupada gives of grass in a water, wet grass, and then dry grass. So dry grass is like, they quickly catch fire. You just take the flame near, it is okay. Wet grass it takes a little more longer. You have to dry it out. You have to do some pre-process. Then it becomes dry, then the grass, then you take flame to it, then it will catch fire. Now the grass inside the water, you take the fire to it, nothing. The fire will get extinguished. So you will have to take that grass out of the water first, and then you have to dry it. So there's more intense work there. So the infidel, the mental speculators, and the Mishra Bhakti, you can roughly compare this way, where the purification process is short, longer, and longest. But then all of them will have to take birth, because they are in that journey that they are making. So till this process happens of coming to the point of fully purified, they'll keep on taking birth again and again. And now when in the process of taking birth, if the time is up, if the Yuga is over, if the Mahayuga is over, then we know, or if Brahma's day is over, then in all those instances, they will be inactive for some time. Then again, but then whatever nature is preserved, there is, like say somebody was in Tamogun, let us say as an example, that is preserved. So when they come out after the duration, when they manifest again in the material world, they'll start off from where they have left off. So they'll start with that Tamogun property that they have. Then again, the purification starts. Slightly better Tamogun, little more better, then Rajo, then like that. It's a long drawn process, birth after birth that goes. But then we should understand, and then Prabhupada also has concluded many times, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to speeden this whole thing. What takes lifetimes, we get it in one lifetime only. We can get purified in one lifetime only. Even though irrespective of whether we are a wet grass or grass in the water, still the Vaishnavas pull us out of the water, may dry us, and then make us eligible for catching fire, make us dry grass, and then so that, and then when we go near the fire, which is when we go near Krishna, then we also become Krishnais. So this is how the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is working, which is actually an exception to all of this that is being discussed here now. But anyway, we need to know all of this so that we understand how the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how strong, how great it is, because we can compare ourselves. If it was not there, then 100, 2000, 1000 or 10,000 years more, and then slowly become dry grass and then move towards spiritualization, towards the Lord. Otherwise, we had no clue. I had no clue where I would be. So now, because of this, some speedening has happened. And that speedening is not because I deserve it. It is because of the mercy. And that mercy is, that is why it is called mercy, because I don't deserve, but then it's like grace mark. I got only 30 or almost 25, failed. But then some grace mark came because I attempted one question. I just put the question number, and then that question number turned out to be wrong. So they gave mark for everybody. So I also got. And then they somehow like my handwriting also. Some small thing, something there. So they said. And then after having done that, oh, he has come up to, if 35 is passed, he has come up to 32. Okay, let me add another 2-3 marks. So like this, somehow being pushed, and then pushed to pass. And so you're just passing out of the material world. We should not think that we are passing out with flying colors, like 90 and above, and then I'm going to the spin. Just scrape through, and then we are made to go, and thereby become eligible to move on. So, but then that should be the mood, and that mood is reinforced by the purpose of Srila Prabhupada, where the surrender aspect is being highlighted, and that is how that is ISKCON, that is Krishna consciousness, and that's how Rupanugas, or followers of Rupa Goswami or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, will have to present ourselves and carry out our services and lead our day-to-day life. So on that note, I'll stop here. I took a little extra. Sorry about that. But if there are any comments or questions, go ahead. So we are just looking at questions, and then we also saw the answers for that based on how Prabhupada wrote in the purports. That was the essence of these 5 verses today. Hare Krishna. So any comments, questions, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
In this text 20, they said topmost of all these Yogeshwaras, they missed Lord Shiva also. Can you explain that, Prabhuji?
Yes, that example was also there of Lord Shiva also being see, most of the people in the material world, people as in entities, I'll not say people, most of the entities in the material world have some mystic powers, some powers. And of course, the topmost like Brahma and then Shiva are all elevated, and then they have mystic powers. So they are also Yogeshwaras. So we just took some small examples, but yes, there are many Yogeshwaras. That is why it said, no, there are many Yogeshwaras with many proficiencies. So based on the proficiency, then the type of mystic person also differs. So it's a huge,
yes, Prabhu, understood.
Proud of them out there. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice that the Lord Shiva also came up, because I didn't mention it, but good that so you'll have read the purport also as we were speaking. So thank you for that.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for the enlightening session. It clarified many doubts. Looking forward to hearing from you again. Devotees, any other question?
All right, I think we can end the session.
Yes, Prabhu. With Vaishnav Pranam.
वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गुरुदेव की जय, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, and the Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Let's say this. So we'll just chant once Hare Krishna before we close. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, devotees. Have a wonderful day. Have a peaceful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the
Thank you, Prabhuji.
wonderful
That was wonderful.
class.
Wonderfully explained. Thank you. Hare
Thank you so much.